to know how you can gain access to capital to jumpstart your journey to entrepreneurial success? For entrepreneurs who are just starting out or those who have been in business for years, Minority Business Access is your podcast. Welcome to our show, where we will guide you in avoiding the pitfalls and thriving in your chosen business. Now, on to the show with your host, Solomon Ali.
Hey, good morning, Alex.
Morning.
It's so glad to have you here on MBA Minority Business Access. I'm so excited to be here with you today and just find out a little bit about you and your company. Now, I won't do it justice in introducing you, so would you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure, happy to, and thanks for having me. So I like to say I'm a serial entrepreneur who likes cereal. So I've co-founder, been on the founding team of 8 companies, and the most notable one that folks recognize is Constant Contact. And so in a suite of small business tools for digital marketing.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about that in the beginning stages?
Sure. Yeah, so when we started Constant Contact, there were 3 of us in an attic. There were 2 technical folks and myself, kind of the original team and of kind of co-founders. And so at the time when we started the company, this is we're going back roughly 20-ish years now. There were the larger big box competitors to small business,
right?
Where they had either an agency or they had a suite of marketing tools, or they had a staff, and they were obviously able to then get out and stay in front of and in touch with their customers and prospects with email marketing and other tools. And so we wanted to level the playing field for small business. So walking down Main Street in any city around the world, how could we level the playing field for them and give them a easy to use set of tools, and where they just had to worry about what do I want to say and when do I want to say it, and not have to worry about the technical aspects of the stuff that was required with the enterprise tools.
So Alex, let me ask you, when growing a small business from your garage or from someone's garage, attic, what was that like? How did you guys come up with the vision? And tell us a little bit about the growing pains of scaling it.
Sure. Yeah. So initially, we set that premise for leveling the playing field and providing a self-service, easy tool for small business, because they didn't have staff, and they may not be technical, and they knew the messaging that they wanted to send. So we had to live into that promise to make it really easy and simple. And so in order for us to figure out kind of what that needed to be, and I'll tell anyone, you got to get out to your target market and ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
And so the first question is, what in your business are you challenged with, or what are you looking for? What are some of the objectives and goals? What's the vision of that small business? And so they would say, like, I'd love to stay top of mind with my customers, or I'd love to drive them back in. I want more revenue. I want them to tell others, have them come in, and so forth. And so once we learned that, and we identified sort of I like to call it the bicycle wheel syndrome. When you're starting a business, every spoke is another idea on how you're going to help your target market.
Right. Okay.
And so we had to figure out what's the one spoke we're going to start with, and that was email marketing. Because if we nail that first thing, because when we started, there was more things we didn't have than we did.
Okay.
Right? We didn't have a finished product. We didn't have a business plan. We had a PowerPoint. We didn't have customers, success stories, revenue. A lot of things we didn't have, and as I understand, you need those. And so we didn't have those initially. But once we learned that we could, kind of satisfy sort of their goals and objectives with what we were trying to do, when we told them that, they got wide-eyed, and now we had to live into creating that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So capital-wise, what type of capital did you have to infuse in the business in the startup stage, let's say in stage 1, and then as you move through the stages?
Yeah. So initially, I'm going to date myself a bit, but when we started, SaaS did not exist. It used to be called ASP. It was ASP, SaaS, and now cloud.
Right.
So application software provider. So we were one of the first 2 to come out with a SaaS offering. We were on the IBM platform. So initially we had to put our software on a CD,
Wow.
and then go plug it into someone's computer.
You're right.
So
You're really
I'm dating
going
myself,
back.
right? And most of the people listening to this, won't relate to that. But there were a few things that sort of had to happen for us to get the flywheel going. And one was obviously create a product that someone would want to pay money for. We were renting it, so started at $15 a month, inexpensive. But for a small business, if they're paying for something, they want to see value. So once we sort of satisfied that and got the flywheel going, we didn't take salaries. We were leaning into this, committed to doing it,
So
without getting paid.
How long did you go without pay?
So at least a couple of years.
Couple of years.
Yeah.
Without pay.
Yeah.
So did you work somewhere else? How did
No.
you take care of yourself?
No. So I was fortunate to have personally just have an exit, a couple of exits prior,
Okay.
an acquisition, and another company that I was not. I was on the early team, the first 20 people, and we went public. So I did have some I guess disposable income, but my mother from day one was like, at the time I had several mortgages. I had all kinds of stuff that I had, a lot of money going out, nothing coming in. And of course, she's like, that's a problem that most of us face in times in life. And so, a lot of pressure on, but it also, I guess, motivated to let's, we got to move quickly here as best we can.
I know in one of my early days, we had to go without pay for years, and going without pay, and everyone will say, how can you go without pay?
Right.
I said I had to, and I would work little odd jobs
Sure,
to try to
sure.
make ends meet. So it was really difficult. And then any money I got, I put it in the business. Did you guys do that as well?
Yeah. So initially we were all committed to this. So we were scrappy. We had several interns, and
Yes.
we had anyone that was wanted to learn. We had an incredible initial team, and then as that evolved and started to grow, it was an exciting thing for folks, but there wasn't going to be pay involved initially, and so we had to sort of figure out some of those things. And to answer your question a moment ago, I think it was roughly about the 2-year mark when we took our first round of venture funding.
Okay.
That was $2.4 million round, and then we took in additional funding over time, leading up to going public. Yeah.
Can I ask you a little question about that? Your first round of funding,
Yeah.
for my audience, so that they can get an understanding. What was that process like?
Sure. And it's a process whether you're going to go get funding or you're going to go get a bank loan, or you're looking for someone to get involved strategically, like an advisor, or there's some things you just have to have in place.
Yes.
You may not have a full-blown business plan, but you might have an executive summary,
Right.
Shorter version of that, with all of projections of financials and what you'd see the business and how it would evolve. And of course, without money, you'd be losing money without any revenue.
Right.
But so you infuse in money that you might take from a variety of ways. Could be debt and a loan. It could be giving up equity for for someone to finance the business, right? And so it really you have to have that sort of that business plan and really know kind of what's your 3 to 5 year kind of vision of where this is going to go, and then you take that and you put it into a PowerPoint. Where you're going to have 10, 12 slides and
Okay.
some other additional ones when they ask questions. The answer needs to be, I have a slide for that.
All right,
So you have
guys,
to-
this is really important to pay attention to what Alex is sharing with you, because he's someone that has done it, been there already. So he's giving you some really great tips on what you need to do. I'm sorry, Alex.
Yeah.
I just want them to know how important
Understand.
this is.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is not the first time this has been done.
Right.
There is somewhat of a repeatable process, and so we tend to want to shortcut it, or we want to sort of skip things, or we're not ready to maybe put something together. But understanding whoever's on the other side of this is going to have an expectation of having certain things in place. they're going to want to see that you have a handle of what the business is, where you see it going, how are you going to get there. So there's that vision, but so what are you going to do today? And so what are you going to do in 6 months, in a year? And so if you're going to go out and get money, they're going to say, okay, what are you going to do with it? You have to really tell them, use the proceeds for, we're going to hire some additional folks for developing the application, or sales team to maybe go out and, or marketing to go out and promote it. And, you're going to have to sort of be really clear for how you're going to spend that money. Because they're going to say, if I give you the money, what are you going to do with it? And what are you going to achieve with that money? And everyone's going to want to know that. So those basic things are the key and the foundation for opening up the conversation to go get money, whether it's a bank loan, and the SBA and others, offer great bank loans and so forth. And if not, giving up equity for funding.
Well, let me ask this, Alex. I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there think they have the greatest business since sliced bread. And when they go get money, they don't want to give up anything. And I'm like, okay, that's a pipe dream, because you're going to have to give up something, or you're going to have to collateralize it. You got to give the investor something to look for. What did you guys, were you willing to give up something? Was it a process that you had to kind of mull over? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So no matter what it is, you're giving something up. If you're taking, it's a give and get.
Okay.
Okay. If you're going to take money from someone, you might be, if it's a straight bank loan, who some are real small business friendly and centric, and others maybe not, but they may say collateralize it against your home. Like,
right.
You don't have enough here. There's no, we don't see the asset yet, or you might not have intellectual property. You might not have things that they would say, okay, there's value in that. So you have to really think through that and understand that you're going to give something up. And in every case, it will lead to giving up some ownership in the company. Now, the burning question is the valuation and what's the company worth?
Yes.
Well, when you don't have customers and a lot of things that are sort of not being checked as needed, then they could, others could argue it's not really worth a lot.
Right.
And so you give up more, when you're getting money, if your valuation is lower. So it's in your hands to create value with get out of stealth mode and get your product out there and get early customers, and don't go get family and friends or people you did business with before, and go get strangers, because they'll give you brutal, honest feedback. But then if they have success with it, then they can become a reference, or which you would want as part of the value. Like we're showing you that our target market wants what we have, and then it's a question about scale. How do you get more of them?
Right.
And then you have to be able to answer the question: how are you going to show the growth path? In the case of working with small businesses, it's very difficult to go door to door. And we were told, you're not going to succeed unless you have a huge army of salespeople. So we had to figure out how we're going to go to market. And in the case, in working with small businesses, there's a whole channel out there of trusted resources and services and others that small businesses rely on for other aspects of getting help, like their point of sale system or other things. And if you could work with those folks who will endorse, recommend, suggest, refer, then you can get to your target market through that channel, which has a lower cost of acquisition, bringing you customers and value to get your valuation to go up. So when you trade off for taking in funds of one way or another, you give up less of the ownership. And it's a equation. It's not a if you, for example, if your company's worth $1 million in value, the valuation, and you're taking in 100,000, you're going to roughly give 10% of the business up, and you have to expect that's what you're going to do.
It's realistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you do a lot of other things currently, like help companies to grow strategically and things like that, and sit on their board and advisory. What's some of the most important things that you feel that an entrepreneur looking to scale a business like you have done in the past and then take it public, that
Sure.
process?
Yeah. So I'm unpacking that, there's a lot of places we can go because it's a journey.
Just what you think
it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It could be 2 marathons. Yeah. So
I found it to be very taxing.
Well, listen, if you're not imagine if you weren't a runner and you didn't have sneakers and you had to run a marathon.
Wow.
That's the taxing of, and so we're all doing this for a reason. And whether it's a nonprofit or it's a creating a new small business to provide for your family, or it's create a business that would potentially scale and have an exit to get acquired or go public. We're all doing it because we're passionate about something. We were passionate about small businesses and helping Main Street, small businesses of all types, right? And so you're in sort of the journey, the things we just talked about, it's sort of getting you ready for the marathon, right? Yes. And so
and it is a marathon.
It is a marathon.
It's a long journey.
Right.
I've been on the journey for 32 years. And we finally we did extremely well. Not as well as some and not as bad as some, but we did extremely well. And then now find myself doing similar to what you're doing on a smaller scale, working with minority companies, saying, okay, if I can do this, you can do this as well. And it's not that difficult. However, it's more than a notion. And what I mean by that is the journey. It's like running that marathon.
Right.
When you start, oh, wow, you're loosening up. By the time you get to mile 3 to 5, you're feeling pretty good. But you get to mile 16, 17, and your body's like, what the heck am I doing? And I found
and your support system around you is saying, what the heck are you doing? You don't run. What are you doing? I'm doing a marathon.
And so, but I have found that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially minority entrepreneurs, they have an unrealistic viewpoint of their businesses and where they want to go with it. And what I mean by that is that they overvalue their business and they underestimate the importance of the capital that's needed and what people need for return. Like when I invest, I like to be able to make sure that it's enough collateral there, or we have enough growth to share in the growth of the business and things of that nature. Can you speak to that from your point of view?
Yeah, sure. And people always ask me, like, who are the folks that you look up to, and that have like influenced you? And my answer is all the small businesses and the startups and the entrepreneurs that I have a chance to work with, and either through providing products and services to, or advising and mentoring. The one group that I'm most passionate about is when we talk about urban innovation and inner city innovation, and so there's a lot of accelerators and programs that support small businesses. So you're not alone in a lot of places around the country. There's great organizations that can provide mentorship and support. And so I'd say in the journey, in this marathon, the difference between a real marathon and this is this you can get a lot of support around you. So, and people can carry you for a little while or run with you and, cheer you on and motivate you, or slap you around and tell you you're going too slow or whatever it is. So it's really important to find, I like to say this, the smart factor, smart advisors, smart mentors, smart people that can help you figure out, your projections and figure out, your strategy for raising funds and alternatives and what's the difference between those. So it's really important to bring in others into the mix. And there's a lot of folks that have been there and done that who can guide you and mentor you. And it's not always giving you the answer. Oh, don't do that. Do this. It's showing you the alternatives, and then you would make a decision around what to do. And so I think a lot of times I'll see startups or an entrepreneur who has horse blinders on. They know their idea, they know where they're going with it, they know the solution that they're going to provide, and they don't necessarily want to get feedback. Like, I know what my customer needs. They won't get customer feedback or prospective customer feedback or strategic advisor feedback or experts in their area, like, folks who are strong on the finance and accounting or whatever. Exactly. And so you have to wrap those folks around you and get them to assist you to really allow you to sort of propel ahead and have success.
It's interesting that you said that, Alex, because I know when I was scaling my business, one of the things that I learned, if you grow too fast, banks say no. Okay, they don't want to deal with you because they think, oh well, let's see what you do for a couple more years.
Right.
And I found that to be very interesting because I went very naively thinking, oh wow, we grew from zero to a few million. They should be excited. I should be able to get all this money, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think perception there is like you're on your way. And so if you did 0 to 2 million, well, you could probably go to 4.
Right.
And a lot of the people in this support network around, bank financing and potentially taking loans and from individuals, investors, if you will, or giving up equity in exchange,
Yes,
for money. They all of them are trying to buy time, so they never say no per se. A lot of them won't say no,
Right.
but they're just going to wait to see, okay, well, what happens next? So if you have that kind of success, or you're starting to see something, or maybe you're so early you don't have revenue yet, they're going to say, this is a great idea, and you're onto something, and keep us posted. Let's see how we do. And all they're trying to do is check, some additional milestones, if you will, to feel more comfortable about involvement and investment, and so it's not until if you, for example, were going to, go get potentially a bank loan, where one bank says, we love the idea, we want to give you the money. That other bank who is sitting on the sidelines, cheering you on for your marathon, will be, whoa, wait a minute, we're interested. And so sometimes it takes two to, for someone to, potentially step up. So they're just going to kind of maybe wait on the sidelines. And so what you have to do is, as best you can, create a sense of urgency and show that your path to success, and for the offering you're bringing your customers, a product, a service, whatever it may be, and and can present and articulate how you're going to scale. And now it becomes a money issue because you're not going to have enough revenue to scale, so you're taking external funds in to accelerate.
Right.
And so if you can paint that picture and let them see, we should be in on this because our money will help that, and that's the scale trajectory. Then then they're going to step forward and give you the money.
So when you say that, Alex, I recall when I went to a VC and a private equity company, and they were like, well, they wanted a lot. I think they wanted over 40% of the company for a really small dollar amount. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do that. And then they kept talking to me, and then they brought up all the different minefields that I would have to navigate. Things that I had not even thought about, didn't know to think about. They start sharing with me.
Right.
Then reality hit for me.
Right.
That, wait a minute, maybe I don't know enough. I knew my business. I knew the core business, but
Right.
maybe I didn't know enough of the other critical pieces that was necessary.
Or I would just say the or in that is that the debate and conversation around valuation, right?
Valuations.
So that $1 million example I gave you earlier, and if you took in $100K, then that's roughly a 10% trade-off, and giving them potential equity. If they're saying to you, well, we want 40%, that math doesn't work. So what has to give? It's the valuation.
Yes.
So your evaluation comes down to, I don't know, whatever the quick math would be on that, but like $300,000.
Right.
So they want you think it's worth $1 million, they think 300,000, and they're going to take 40, whatever the percentage is, that's higher than 10%.
Yes.
And so the only way you can get the valuation back up is to show milestones and things that you've achieved, and it's not always revenue driven, but we have a finished product, we have the team, we have the right team. We have a really large problem that we're solving. We have the right solution, and this is what makes us unique. And the competitors, while they're out there, are not focused on sort of these things that we are, which sets us apart, for success. And oh, by the way, we have, some customers, 2, 3, 4, whatever the number is, and some success stories. And each of those things are increasing the, kind of the valuation because you're checking boxes to give someone that wants to invest in comfort in investing and also in that valuation.
Yes. And I think that's what we ended up doing. We started looking at the industry and we start showing and identifying exactly how we would gain market share.
Right.
Not necessarily take market share away from others, but that's what we were doing, was going to gain more market share by taking market share away, because we knew we had solved a problem and we had identified it, and then that's when things start turning around. But I'm gonna say this, shit, it was hard freaking work. It was hard.
Yeah, we were both sitting here with, I used to have a full head of hair. And, it's stressful, it's very hard, and, and there's a lot of, sort of the peaks and valleys and up and down, and
Yes.
and that happens in the course of a day, not over time.
Right. I remember parents, wife at the time, everyone's telling me, go get a job. In fact, go get 2 jobs. We have bills to pay and things of that nature. And I'm working a part-time job and doing the business.
Right, yeah.
And still, but every dollar that came in, I'm pumping it in the business. And they were like, are you crazy?
Right.
And I'm like, no, this is going to work. And no one believed in it but me. And I found out in the very beginning I had some believers.
Right.
Along the way, they all fell away, fell to the side. And at the end, it was just kind of me. But then as soon as I started getting money in, all of a sudden I had some more believers again.
It's funny who comes back around, like, when you start having that success. Like,
Yes.
And then if you were to take that all the way through to having an acquisition or an IPO, it's always funny when they come back and like, oh, that's the one we got away from us, or no, actually you kicked us out of your office and told us there's no way we're going to succeed. You don't remember that part of the story.
Right.
Right?
Well, could you tell us about the IPO? You guys did that.
Yeah, and so I'm jumping 10 years from kind of inception.
Mm-hmm.
As when we went public, and so the process leading up to that, there was a lot of things that need to be in place, and we were fortunate, so Constant Contact. When we sold the company, there was 1,500 employees, and we had an amazing management team, rockstar management team that came in.
Before you jump to the IPO, tell us about the growing pains, because I know there's some critical things in growing pains that most entrepreneurs don't know when you take a business from where you're wearing all the hats and marketing, finance, it all, to having to bring those experts in and place them around you to grow that business.
Yeah, and so we were fortunate even on the earlier days to have the initial sort of core management team that we're rounding out and needed, and so we had great people, obviously there. We had great advisors. We had, at that point we had a great board that was very supportive. A lot of things that were sort of in place, but I think one of the hard things is when you're starting, you're setting the culture.
Yes.
Right. And what do you want that culture to be? And we were great. We really spent a lot of time figuring out kind of what are the things we're going to focus on. And number one was delight the customer.
Okay.
Right? Like, wow the customer. If you create a wow moment for your customer, they're gonna stay with you.
Right.
They're gonna tell others. They're gonna do all those things. Right.
Okay.
So culture was key. And when you scale, one of the most challenging things with scaling was like somebody we would hire somebody in, and within 6 weeks they were like a manager of another group, and then
wow.
we were at scaling growth. You're bringing in so many people, and we had to just make sure that culture just carried down, because some folks weren't there very long, even though in the interview process you're making sure that there's a culture fit, and that they'd be a great addition to the team, and they're passionate about our target market, and so on.
But challenging?
Yeah, so it's a great challenge. The growth itself is very challenging, because you're assimilating in new people. Sometimes, you blink and they have people reporting to them, and it's very challenging. And so that's the one I was sort of I go back to, and there's so many other things that a great management team would make sure didn't have, try not to have a lot of bumps in that road as you're doing it, because challenges occur. If you're not growing a team fast enough, then the challenge is that everyone's doing a lot more. So as you're wearing a million hats, and then the hope is, well, we'll bring in a few more people to focus on that. So you take some stuff off your plate, give it to the new people, and guess what? That plate gets filled with some other stuff that just hadn't been done.
Okay.
Like it's just this, it just propels that way, and eventually, you
let
get
me ask
around
you
it
this,
out.
Alex. When you're bringing those new people on, and before you're making all the decisions, or you and your core management team are making all these decisions, and then you have to delegate and allow other people to make decisions and even possibly go through a learning curve.
Sure.
What was that like?
Yeah, it feeds into sort of the challenges, but there's and there are a lot of trade-off conversations with so we have just so much money and it's going to be allocated to growth, and we took in money and we said use the proceeds, we're going to hire a team. Well, you have to establish what areas you're going to hire them in, and make sure you nail that.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to hire 10 more salespeople if you don't have a finished product.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
For example, maybe you'd want to hire more engineers to finish the product, and then, but you got to get some folks on the sales and business development side to start telling the story, because partnerships take a long time, and there's a lot of things that sort of come into play. But making sure that they always say hire your replacement, and there are a lot of people out there that won't. Right. And I'm not talking specific to my experience with Constant Contact or the other companies I was involved with, but talking and advising, mentoring, and talking, speaking to tons of startups. There are a lot of people that, would almost be afraid, well, if I hire someone who's as good as me or better, like I'll lose my job. It's like, no, you'll move up. If you're doing a great job, you're moving up and they're taking your job.
Yes,
right?
That's what I found.
And there's a little bit of a, hesitance with some folks. And I think, as they always say, when you're starting the business, everyone is an equal. I just remember in the early days, whoever joined the company, no matter what your title was, you first put your desk together. We'd buy it was in a box, okay. And when you finish your desk, then you unpack your computer and put it on your desk, and lay everything out, and then someone from IT or operations would come over and set it up and get you on the network and what have you. And it's almost like everyone empties their own trash can. Or, you have to have all those things as part of your culture, as well as the expectation and understanding as you would start to scale. That if you do a good job, you're going to move up, and you're going to have more direct reports, and hire hire that person that can step into that role. And everyone has to leave egos behind, and your past experience issues. Everyone's like, oh, well, I had a boss and he would never promote me, and like all of that, I guess, baggage needs to be left behind, and you're coming at it with a fresh start. And in the earlier days, if you're don't be a single founder, you should find a complement to have at least two folks that are responsible for the success in the business.
Right.
No one can wear all the hats. Everyone's like, well, I'm technical and I'm also good on the business side. Pick your lane, stay in your lane, and get someone else to get in the other lane.
Yes.
And then that's going to also give confidence to investors and others that you realize that titles don't matter, and you're willing to step aside and maybe bring someone in, which we agreed early on, and we brought a rock star CEO in to run the business, and for us to step aside in those titles to do whatever it takes for the business to sort of succeed.
How did you know when it was time to bring that rock star in?
Well, sometimes you would set it, and other times others would. So, for example, going out and getting funding. If people are first-time entrepreneurs and someone's ready to fund, they may make suggestions that we should maybe bring someone in. They may want somebody that they know to come and step in, so have somebody else come in and step in and run the business, because then they'll feel confident that that person has been there and done that and can foresee what's to come, and hopefully be able to sort of accelerate the growth in the business. So you have to establish, just like I said, you're hiring your replacement. You have to be open to what's best for the business. And oftentimes in the earlier days, it's either by your decision or someone else's suggestion or recommendation or possibly requirement. Like, we'll give you the funding, but you got to bring someone in who's seasoned, and can potentially run the business.
Well, Alex, let me just ask, how would they get in touch with you if they were looking to get some strategic business help?
Sure.
Or any of the services or things that you might offer that may be able to help them navigate that minefield?
Yeah, so spending about half my time going around speaking. So I'm often in cities speaking at conferences, as they come. So I have a website, www.alecspeaks.com is one way, and then on all the social channels, it's ALEC Alec Stern. Happen to beta test most of them, so I got my name without underscores and all this other stuff.
Well, just for their sake, because they may not have been ready for that, could you repeat that so they'll be able to get you?
Website would be www.alecspeaks.com, speaks.com, and then the social channels are all my name, so ALECSTERN.
Okay. Well, Alex, I want to thank you so much for coming to Minority Business Access. Really appreciate and love having you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Minority Business Access podcast. Connect with us at solomonrcali.info to leave a review and access more resources. We hope you enjoyed this show and found great value. See you at the next episode.